guys, now that we have looked at our videos, it's time to draw our cake so we are ready for class next week. The cake is very simple. It's going to be a basic cylinder shape, and then we'll erase some components so we can show a cutout that has been removed from our cake. So near the top of our paper, we're going to start with a nice wide oval. Once we are done with our oval, we're going to bring our sides down. They should be straight and connected to the outer edges of the oval. And because the cake is round, we want to curve the bottom. Okay, next we're going to show how to get the cutout from our cake. I'm going to stick a dot in the middle. We're going to bring two lines coming out, almost like a letter V. And I'm going to come straight down from those edges. And I'm going to erase the curves in between. Finally, I need to show where my frosting would be in the different layers of my cake. I want to work with parallel lines using this line. So this is my baseline that I'm going to start with, and I need to create parallel lines. So I'm going to follow that angle, that line, 1, 2, depending on the height of your cake, you may have more or less layers than I have in mine. This one right here at the bottom is very important because that leaves this open space and really lets us see that that layer has been removed. Your cake can be tall, like mine. It can also be wide, like I have in this sample here. Alright, welcome back. Last week we learned about our artist Wayne Thiebaud and we drew our cake. This week we are going to create the texture inside of here so that this looks like cake, and we are going to frost the exterior of our cake. First, I want to start by texturizing so that anything that comes outside of my edges, I can clean up when I frost. I have a variety of tools that we can use, sponges, different texture tools, etc. This one is my favorite. It reminds me of kind of an old scouring sponge. I think this creates one of the better textures. I do not want a lot of paint on it. I'm barely going to touch it inside, and you can see I did not fill all of the holes. There's just a little bit of paint on the top surface. I don't want it going all the way in. I don't want it to be too loaded with paint, or it's just going to become solid brown. Once I have this in place, I can then begin texturizing. And as you can see, because this is square, we have triangular shapes and thicknesses and thinnesses to consider, we're going to kind of go outside of the lines. Again, I'm dabbing, I am not dragging. If I were to drag it, it would just smear and not look like cake. By continuing to dab, I start to get that cake appearance. With that, I'm going to be done. I'm going to share this with my neighbor, let them continue along their way, or if I'm the last one to have it, when I'm done, I'm going to go and rinse this out at the sink. Very important that we clean these so they are ready for our next group. And then we're going to use a palette knife. Now, palette knives are tools that we use in art. They are for oil paints typically. We're going to use them like a frosting knife or a frosting spatula to frost our cakes. Treating this like frosting, I'm going to scoop some up and kind of drop it into place. I want to clean the top of this off because I'm not going to frost with the top. And then I can start spreading this around. I like to come in here and I like to recreate that line. Working slowly, taking my time, really trying to keep my edge and my lines as clean as I can get them. Coming on this side, I want to do the same thing. Try and clean up my edges, clean up my lines. As I spread it, I'm starting to show some of that texture in there. Okay, now I work in all different directions when I do this. I like to turn my paper to do the top. I feel I have a little better control that way. Just how I created the edges here, I want to frame out this triangle up top. If I don't have enough paint, it's not going to spread very well. If I have too much, I'm going to have a very soggy paper and it might take too long to dry. It's nice that we have a week between classes because I've seen students put a lot of paint and I've had their paintings take 3 and 4 days to dry. Okay, so with that, I have frosted my cake. I've gone around my edges. I can see all of the textures in there. I have created the inside cake filling. I'm going to let it dry. When it's dry, or for our next week, we're going to come back and frost with piping bag. Welcome back to day 3. It is now time to complete our cakes by using our piping bag. When using a piping bag with paint, I recommend using a very small tip, a 1, 2, 3, or 4. As you start getting larger or getting into decorator tips, you start to have issues if you don't thicken your paint enough. If you over thicken the paint and put too much additive in it, then the paint tends to crack and crumble as it dries. So that being said, I tend to put a paper clip in the tip of my bag so that it doesn't dry. I like to use these bands to keep them sealed so that the paint's not falling all over. And I hold it upright to take the Q-tip or the paper clip out. First thing I want to do is I want to outline the top circle of my cake. I'm going to squeeze gently, and I'm recreating that oval that we had drawn in week 1. And I stop. Remember here, I cut my cake out, so that would not be outlined with frosting. I'm going to also do the bottom. Bakers tend to decorate the bottom edges. And my final detail that I need to add in is creating the frosting that would be between my different cake layers. So remember, we worked with horizontal lines that were horizontal to this. So now I'm going to pipe that horizontal line. Feels like something's sticking. Sometimes we get clumps with the additive. Oops. Like so. I don't like all of that came in there. So I can try to remove some of that with a palette knife. Use a piece of paper towel. And try to clean that up so it looks a little nicer. Now at this point, I'm done. I do not need to add anything more. If I wanted to get a little more decorative, I could create some kind of a pattern on here, trying to make it very simple. I would not want to go with too many details. Put my paper clip back inside. On with this. My cake is done. I'm going to let this dry so that I can decide how to finish it next week. Now that our cake has been piped, everything is dry, it's time to finish it with a background. In my demo, I'm going to paint. Another alternative would be using oil pastels, and a third option would be cutting the cake out and gluing it onto a colored paper or a scrapbook designed paper to add more interest. But for my sample, I am going to paint a very simple background so that I can clean up anything that may have fallen off onto the edges, any extra marks that I may have gotten, such as this here. So I'm going to start with my first color, and I'm going to create a horizon line to show that it's sitting on top of something. So I'm going to use purple for the bottom. And I like to outline and keep a nice clean edge. This is probably the most time-consuming part of the entire project, because you really want to work nice and careful, nice and cautious, so that you are keeping a clean line and a clean edge. Going to paint inside of here, because remember my cake has been cut out. Once I get my paint on there, I like to kind of go all in the same direction and show one continuous brush stroke. You'll see that I've completed with the yellow above my horizon, and I've got my entire background.